Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Cal Royal number 134RSDL20. This is a sliding privacy pocket door lock is what it is. Okay. This model, the 134, is intended for 1 3/4 thick doors. And it has some special accommodations to allow it to work on an 1 3/4 door, which we'll go over in a moment. The lock is generally assembled like this when it arrives to you. And is available in lots of different finishes, namely US10B oil rubbed bronze finish, US15 satin nickel, 15A is antique nickel, US26 for polished chrome. This is the US26D satin chrome, US3 and US3 is polished brass. And then US5 is antique brass. Okay. Sold as each. You're going to get the lock, you're going to get the latch bolt, you're going to get a strike plate, and you're going to get screws for attaching the latch bolt and the strike plate, and then of course installation instructions, and these are linked below this video so that you can review them before, perhaps during installation if you like. Now let's before we get into the installation instructions, let's talk about the lock itself. I guess we'll do both at the same time. So what you're going to have is these two circular plates, and that's intended for a 2 1/8 inch hole. The side that would have the privacy button release on, I want you to remove those two screws. Not the side with the small hole in it, not that side. If you want to, you're going to have to remove them to get it installed. Just don't want to lose those screws, obviously. Got your plate removed. Then at this point, the latch bolt will simply come out. Now, I mentioned that there were some special considerations that apply for this lock specifically. Here's what I mean. These two little extensions will be included for an 1 3/4 door for the button to lock, to engage or disengage it. I should say to engage it. You'll then also have a extension for the release as well. The locking button. The locking button is what this is. This is the release, and this is the locking button extension. Now, when you have an 1 3/4 thick door, you have to use those pieces so that you can get the hardware extended out far enough for the thicker aspect of the door. The locking button extension here, the release, then your two extension pieces snap on. And they'll be in the package with the screws. And it's thick enough to work. Now, so this is your latch bolt. And what you're dealing with is a 2 3/8 back set, which is of course going to be typical and common for residential doors. The dimension of the latch bolt, 1 inch by 2 1/4. So that's going to be very common. And it's going to work in all of your typical installations. The template calls this out at 1 1/8 inch wide. And frankly, I don't know why they would want you to prep that at 1 1/8 wide. I mean, it's 1 inch. I wouldn't make it 1 1/8 wide. I would prep it for what this is. I don't see a reason to have that any thicker than necessary. Okay. Now, after you get that prepped, the door prep, you would insert the latch bolt without those extension pieces. You would depress the locking button extension and then slide that in. Don't rotate it. Don't force it. Okay. That will go in. Now, what you've got is the way that the latch bolt works you've got the tip of my finger, a little hook, that when I depress the release, which is in the center, it retracts that hook. And when I set the locking button extension, when I'm in the room, it forces it out. And what that's connecting to is that bar that is in the strike. Okay, well, that mystery's solved. The 1.125" dimension that they're calling out is going to be for your strike plate. 2 1/4, but the strike is going to be what's 1.125". 1.125" in the frame, 1 inch in the door. Now, you've got that locking point projected. You slide that door closed, and it's just sure going to lock, no problem at all. You can't really pull that apart until, of course, you depress the button, and it will slide apart. Until you then reoccupy the room, and you'll notice that when I depress that to pull it apart, I then use the lock again, and you'll see how that button projects out, because that is, again, your locking button. Okay? So that's your typical installation of that. So you've got your latch bolt, 2 3/8, 2 1/4 by 1.125". Your 2 trim plates. Now, this is the side with the emergency release button, which is always the exterior. The little hole goes away from the strike jamb. That lines up, of course, with the release button, so that they're on the same side. Okay. Should you, and this again has to be on the exterior side, should someone become trapped inside the room, you'd be able to insert a very small item, like maybe a number 4 penny finish nail, and of course then be able to activate that release by moving it in the opposite direction. And operating that release will allow you to physically push that in. It's just spring loaded, okay? But it won't just pull open because of the shoulder to the underside of this. So you'd physically have to push the emergency release back so that you could easily just then pull the door, because then it's not engaged. Okay. So now to give you the full operation, should the emergency release need to be enacted, I'm inside the room because I've got the locking portion on my side. I've entered the room, it's locked, I've pushed the release. You can see what's happening there. When I enter the room and push, watch this release button. It snaps out. Now it's centered, now it doesn't work. If you had to use the emergency by depressing that from the exterior, that spring-loaded action simply allows you to depress the button from the outside exterior, allowing it to come apart. Okay. The exterior side is going to have these square posts. Don't remove those. There's no reason to remove those at all. Leave those right where they are. Okay. The diameter of your plates, about 2 3/4 diameter. Okay, that's going to work quite lovely in a 2 1/8 inch diameter hole. Very thin material. It's probably no more than 30 thousandths. Or 40 thousandths, I'd say. So it's not going to present any sort of obstacle to your sliding door, pocket door scenario. So I've got the entire lock disassembled, and that's no problem, and that's easy. Put that back together. Let's go over the installation instructions. So step 1, if you are reviewing below this video, using the template above, mark a horizontal line 38 inch from the door bottom. Mark a 2 1/8 inch bore. The center should be 2 3/8 from the edge of the door. Mark a 15/16 bore on the edge of the door along the horizontal center line and centered on the door thickness. So what they're basically telling you is prep the door. The 38 dimension from the bottom of the door up, you can put it anywhere you want. They're just saying that's going to be pretty common. You probably will want to take an audit or a poll of the other doors around you to make sure that that centerline dimension where you're going to install this matches everything. If you were to have like a commercial setting, and this is not ADA compliant at all, but imagine if you had a long hallway with several office doors, you're going to want the line of sight to line up correctly with where you'll install for this as well. So where you put it is up to you. 38 is a guideline. Now,